All right, so welcome everyone to our deep dive today.
Yeah, we're going to be taking a look at, well, snapshot really of the global economy, and geopolitics specifically like as of January 14th, 2025. And the really interesting thing is we're basing this whole deep dive on a single issue of the Trends Journal,
Yeah.
specifically the January 14th issue. It's kind of like we're using this magazine as like a lens to try and understand what's really happening in the world.
Yeah. Using a single magazine to analyze such complex topics, I mean, that's definitely a unique challenge. I guess it forces us to be selective, right? Really zero in on the most significant trends and, of course, think about their potential impact.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole mission here, right? We're trying to cut through all the noise, all the headlines and the hot takes, and like really try to understand what's bubbling beneath the surface. Like, is the world, teetering on the brink of some massive economic crisis? Or are we, maybe heading toward like a period of stability? And I mean, how do all these geopolitical shifts, factor into all of this? Yeah, no, I mean, these are definitely crucial questions, especially, given all the events of the past few years. And the Trends Journal does highlight some pretty interesting data points here that could offer some clues. For example, did you know that, get this, Americans spend as much on gambling in a year as the entire crypto market cap?
Wait, hold on.
Well,
Seriously.
seriously. Well, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, of course.
That's wild. I mean, what does that even tell us about the economy, right? Are people just feeling lucky? Or is there something like deeper going on here?
Yeah, that's a great question. One interpretation, is that it reflects like this underlying sense of economic anxiety.
Right.
People might be feeling uncertain about their financial futures.
Mm.
And, well, maybe they're looking for, ways to get ahead, maybe even like through a quick win, a gamble.
Yeah. That makes sense. So it's not just about feeling lucky, it's more like a symptom of a deeper unease.
Exactly. And this whole idea of like a shaky foundation under the economy,
Yeah.
it's further emphasized when you look at some of the other trends the magazine highlights. Like we're seeing record numbers of corporate bankruptcies,
Right.
right? And store closures.
Right. Right.
It seems like, things aren't as rosy as they might appear on the surface.
Okay, so maybe things aren't as stable as some folks might think. And speaking of instability, what's the deal with the stock market? I mean, the Trends Journal mentioned some pretty contrasting trends there, right?
Right, yeah. The stock market's painting a very, very mixed picture right now. On one hand, you've got, the Dow Jones and the
Yeah.
S&P 500. And while they're still down for the year, they have seen some gains recently.
Okay, so some positive movement there.
Yeah. But then on the other hand, you've got the tech-heavy NASDAQ, and that's down.
Oh, wow. So why is that?
Well, likely investors are a bit spooked, I'd say, by rising treasury yields.
Okay, hold on. Treasury yields, remind me again what those are and why they have investors so worried.
Sure, yeah. Treasury yields are basically, it's the return you get for lending money to the U.S. government by buying, treasury bonds. So when these yields go up, it means the government has to pay more to borrow money. And that can have, a ripple effect across the board. It can impact interest rates, for everyone.
Right, right.
Investors often see these rising treasury yields as a sign that, well, interest rates in general might increase soon.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So higher interest rates, that usually means it's more expensive for businesses and individuals to borrow money. And that, of course, that can slow down economic growth.
Exactly.
But hold on, didn't the Trends Journal also mention something about the Producer Price Index,
Yeah.
the PPI? I think it said that might actually cause the Fed to cut rates. What's going on there?
Yeah, so the PPI, right,
Mm-hmm.
that measures the average change in prices that producers receive for their, goods and services. And the recent release actually showed a bit of an unexpected dip, suggesting that, maybe inflation might be cooling down a little.
Oh, okay.
And this led some to speculate that, the Federal Reserve might actually cut interest rates sooner than expected to try and, stimulate the economy a bit.
So wait a minute. Didn't the Trends Journal also highlight the strong December jobs report? I mean, wouldn't that encourage the Fed to actually keep rates high to try and combat inflation?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's this tension, between these conflicting signals that makes the current economic situation so fascinating.
Yeah, it's a real puzzle.
Right. Like, is a rate cut really on the table, or are we actually heading for, more economic uncertainty? It's Really tough to say for sure.
Okay, so things are a bit messy here in the US. What about the rest of the world? What's happening in the Eurozone? I think the Trends Journal mentioned some worrying signs coming from that part of the world.
Yeah, the Eurozone is definitely showing some mixed signals too. So their services sector is showing growth, which is good,
Okay.
but their manufacturing sector is actually declining. In Germany, Germany's a major economic powerhouse in the Eurozone,
Right.
and they're facing some challenges, weak new orders, and their retail sales are actually shrinking.
So are we talking about a potential recession in the Eurozone? I mean, how bad could it get?
It's definitely a possibility, yeah. Especially with all the uncertainty around, energy prices,
Right, of course.
which are, I mean, they're still a major wild card.
Yeah.
And then, on top of that, you've got the potential for increased tariffs from the U.S.
Hmm.
under, the new Trump administration.
Right. Trump, his return to the presidency seems to be shaking things up, on the geopolitical stage as well as the economic one.
Oh, yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, the Trends Journal focuses on, some of his more, let's say, ambitious goals, like
Mhm.
wanting to control the Panama Canal and Greenland. He even hinted at, possibly annexing Canada.
Yeah, those are some pretty bold pronouncements, to say the least. I mean, you could even say, a bit reckless. I mean, Denmark, a NATO
Uh-uh.
member,
Well,
they've already made it clear that Greenland is not for sale.
yeah.
And the administrator of the Panama Canal he's basically laughed off Trump's claims.
So, okay, but how seriously should we take all of this? Is it just, Trump being Trump?
Hmm.
Or is there a real risk here of, international backlash
Yeah,
or even conflict?
that's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump's unpredictability makes it, very difficult to gauge what he'll actually do.
Right.
And while some might dismiss this as, just bluster,
Right.
it would be, well, foolish to ignore the potential consequences if he actually decides to act on these ambitions.
Right. Yeah, you never know with him. And speaking of, potentially explosive situations, the ongoing war in Israel, I mean, that's a major crisis that deserves our attention. And the Trends Journal reports that, there's this potential ceasefire between Israel and Hamas that's being negotiated, and the incoming Trump administration is, acting as a mediator. But is there any real hope for peace there?
Well, the article, it paints a pretty grim picture, to be honest. It cites this shocking statistic. Over 46,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
And there are reports suggesting that the actual number is significantly higher than that.
Wow.
It's a humanitarian catastrophe
Yeah.
unfolding right in front of us.
The article really, it really drives home the dire situation there. Children are, I mean, they're literally freezing to death. Hospitals are running out of fuel, and hundreds of thousands of children haven't been able to go to school for over a year. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it really is. And the risk of, of the conflict escalating. I mean, that's very real. The Trends Journal notes that Israel has, they've intensified their strikes in Lebanon.
Oh, what?
And that could easily, I mean, it could draw another country into this war. Plus, you've got Trump. He's issued these threats of, further punishment for Hamas if the hostages aren't released.
Yeah, it's a very tense situation. I think the article quotes a Gazan citizen as saying, "I am not sure Trump understands the situation here. It is already hell." It's just a chilling reminder, of the human cost of this conflict.
Absolutely. Given Trump's history of taking a hard line, it's definitely a valid concern.
So with all that said, I mean,
Yeah.
what are the chances of a lasting ceasefire, and what might the consequences of, Trump's involvement be?
Those are complex questions that we'll definitely delve into further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, that's good.
We'll also explore another trend that's really reshaping our world, the rise of artificial intelligence. And its potential impact, on everything from the economy to geopolitics.
AI, can't forget about that. That's a whole other can of worms.
Exactly. It sounds like we've got a lot to unpack.
We do.
We'll be right back after a quick break. All right, so we've kind of established that, the global landscape is looking a bit shaky, both, economically and geopolitically. But let's maybe shift gears for a second and delve into another trend that the Trends Journal highlights, the rise of artificial intelligence. It feels like AI is, popping up everywhere these days. And the article, I mean, it suggests that it's only going to become more prevalent in our lives, right?
Oh, absolutely.
AI is advancing so rapidly,
Yeah.
and it's already starting to have a significant impact, I think. on, various sectors, from, healthcare and education to, manufacturing and finance. And I think what's so fascinating is how AI is like blurring the lines,
Yeah.
between like human capabilities and machine capabilities. It's almost like it's challenging our very definition of what it means to be human.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's what makes AI so intriguing and honestly a little unsettling. Like the article talks about, these humanoid robots being developed that can perform like complex tasks, even surgery and childcare. It's mind-blowing, but it also makes you wonder like where do we draw the line?
Yeah, you've hit on a key point there. Take AI assisted surgery, for example.
Mhm.
On the one hand, it offers, incredible precision, potentially, minimizing human error, which is, I mean, that's amazing when you think about it.
Right.
Right.
But then on the other hand, it does raise some tough questions, like will surgeons eventually become,
Mm.
obsolete? And what about like the human touch? The empathy that's so crucial in healthcare. Can AI truly replicate that?
It's a real ethical tightrope walk.
It is.
And it's not just healthcare, right? The article also talks about the potential for AI to cause like widespread job displacement. I mean, as robots become more sophisticated, are we risking a future where like millions of people are out of work?
That's a valid concern, yeah. And it's something that, we need to be thinking about seriously. It's not just about retraining people for different roles, it's reimagining the entire structure of our economy,
Yeah.
our, social safety nets. How do we create a world where everyone has a place
Yeah.
and a purpose,
Yeah.
even as, technology changes the nature of work?
It's a daunting challenge.
It is.
And it seems like, AI is evolving faster than our ability to adapt. The Trends Journal even mentions this worrying trend of declining cognitive skills. Like, are we becoming so reliant on technology that we're losing our ability to like think critically and solve problems on our own? Is AI making us, dumber?
That's a provocative question, and
Yeah.
and it's not entirely unfounded. I think, if we offload too much of our thinking to AI,
Mhm.
are we risking a kind of like intellectual atrophy? It's a slippery slope,
Yeah.
and we need to find a way to leverage AI's power,
Yeah.
without sacrificing our own cognitive abilities. It's
Ah.
about finding that right balance.
Right, yeah. It's about using AI as a tool, not letting it become, a crutch.
Exactly.
And speaking of slippery slopes, the article also brings up this whole issue of, data privacy and AI surveillance as AI systems gather more and more data about us. Who controls that data? How do you protect ourselves from, potential misuse? I mean, it feels a bit like we're sleepwalking into like this dystopian future
Hmm.
where Big Brother is an algorithm.
Yeah, you're right to be concerned. Data privacy is, I mean, it's paramount in the age of AI. We need, strong legal frameworks and ethical guidelines to ensure that our data is used responsibly and that, that we retain control over our digital identities. It's about empowering individuals, not just corporations or governments.
Right, right. It's about like individual agency in this new digital world.
Hmm.
The Trends Journal keeps, hammering this idea of creating a human-centered technological future. But in a world where, AI is advancing so rapidly, can we truly ensure that technology serves humanity rather than the other way around?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a question that needs to be at the forefront, I think,
Yeah.
of, the conversation about AI. We need to be proactive
Mhm.
in shaping the future of this technology, not just, reacting to its rapid evolution. It's about making conscious choices, right?
Yeah.
That align with our values as a society.
I like that, being proactive, not just, letting things happen, but actively shaping the future.
Right, exactly.
And this brings us back to that fundamental question, that the Trends Journal poses. Like, in a world of, increasingly sophisticated AI, what does it even mean to be human? Are we on the cusp of like a new era of human evolution, or are we at risk of becoming, obsolete?
I think it's not an either situation.
Yeah.
It's more like a boat hand.
Mm-hmm.
AI has the potential to, enhance our capabilities
Yeah.
and unlock like incredible new possibilities.
Right.
But it also challenges us, right, to redefine our understanding of what it means to be human. It's a time of both great opportunity and great responsibility.
I love that. Both hand. It's not about, fearing the future.
Mm.
or blindly embracing it, but about, actively shaping it.
Precisely. The choices we make today, I mean, they'll have a ripple effect, right?
Huh.
Shaping the future for generations to come. We can't afford to be, passive bystanders in this technological revolution. We need to be active participants,
Yeah.
guiding AI's development in a direction that benefits all of humanity.
Okay, that all makes sense. But I mean, how do we do that? How do
Yeah.
we ensure that AI serves us, not the other way around?
Well, I think it starts with education,
Yeah.
fostering critical thinking
Mm.
and media literacy skills. In a world that's, completely saturated with information, it's more important than ever to be able to like discern fact from fiction,
Mm.
to evaluate information with a discerning eye,
Yeah.
and to think for ourselves. We need to be able to, ask the right questions, to challenge assumptions,
Mhm.
and to consider different perspectives.
Right, to not just accept everything at face value.
Exactly.
And that's something we can all do, right? Regardless of, our background or expertise. It's about being like engaged citizens, being informed and participating in the conversation about the future we want to create. It's not just about AI, It's about everything, the economy, politics, the environment. It's all connected.
You're absolutely right. It's about seeing that bigger picture, understanding how, all these different trends are interconnected, and recognizing that our actions have consequences, right?
Mhm.
It's about taking responsibility for the future, both individually and collectively.
Right. Yeah, it's about realizing that we're all in this together.
Exactly.
Speaking of, the bigger picture, let's maybe shift our focus back to the economic trends we were discussing earlier. It seems like we're in a bit of a paradox, right? Like you've got soaring corporate profits,
Yeah.
but alongside like record bankruptcies, a booming stock market
Yeah.
amidst fears of a recession. It's enough to make anyone's head spin.
It is a time of great volatility and uncertainty, no doubt. The traditional economic indicators, I mean, they seem to be sending these mixed signals, and the political landscape, with Trump's return, that's just adding another layer of complexity. It's like we're trying to navigate uncharted waters
Yeah.
without a compass.
So let's try to make sense of this, right? The Trends Journal points to this concerning trend of rising corporate bankruptcies, despite like strong corporate profits overall. It's like certain sectors are thriving, while others are barely hanging on. What's going on there?
Well, it's a sign, I think, of an economy in transition. A shift away from traditional industries
Mm.
towards these technology-driven sectors, and as with any transition, there will be winners and losers. The companies that can adapt and innovate, they'll thrive, while those that cling to the old ways, they'll likely struggle. And I think this disparity, it's reflected in the contrasting trends of corporate profits and,
Yeah.
and bankruptcies.
Yeah.
It's almost like a microcosm of what's happening in society as a whole, with AI and automation.
Right. Yeah. So it's not just about, individual companies succeeding or failing. It's about like these larger forces reshaping the entire economic landscape. The article also mentions this worrying increase in store closures.
Right.
It feels like the retail apocalypse is like still unfolding, even as, online shopping continues to boom.
Yeah, the retail landscape is definitely undergoing a fundamental transformation.
Right.
The rise of, e-commerce, it's really disrupted traditional brick and mortar businesses,
Right.
forcing them to either, adapt or face extinction.
Mhm.
And this transformation has a ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
Impacting not just, individual businesses,
Mhm.
but also, entire communities that rely on those businesses for jobs and economic stability. It's a complex web of interconnected issues.
It is, yeah. And yet, amidst all this economic uncertainty, the Trends Journal also highlights the soaring U.S. stock market. It's a bit of a head scratcher, right? Like a booming stock market alongside fears of a recession. How do we reconcile those two things?
Yeah, the stock market can be a fickle beast. It's
Huh.
it's often seen as a barometer of economic health, but it doesn't always tell the whole story. The current bull market, it's been fueled by a combination of factors, including low interest rates, corporate tax cuts, and perhaps even a bit of irrational exuberance. It's like a casino where everyone's winning,
Yeah.
but no one knows how long the winning streak will last.
Yeah, so it's like a bubble waiting to burst.
Potentially, yeah.
So are we on the verge of a market crash? And with the Fed, potentially cutting rates sooner than expected, could we see even more fuel added to this this stock market fire?
It's certainly a possibility,
Mm.
but it's important to remember that the stock market is not the economy.
Right.
A booming stock market doesn't necessarily translate into, economic prosperity for everyone.
Which brings us to another issue highlighted in the Trends Journal, right? The widening wealth gap. The article states that the richest 1% now own more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. That's a pretty startling statistic.
It is, yeah. The gap between, the rich and the poor, that's a growing concern, not just in the U.S., but globally.
Yeah.
It's a trend that's been, exacerbated by globalization, technological advancements, and government policies that, that often favor the wealthy.
Right.
It's like the game is rigged, and the rules are constantly being rewritten to benefit those who are already ahead.
Yeah, it's like the system is working against the majority of people.
In a way, yeah.
And as this gap widens, I mean, it creates all sorts of, social and economic problems, right? It fuels political polarization,
Right.
erodes social cohesion, and undermines faith in, democratic institutions. It's like we're creating a society of haves and have-nots,
Yeah.
and that's not sustainable in the long run.
Yeah, the Trends Journal doesn't sugarcoat the situation. It predicts that the wealth gap will continue to widen in the years to come, unless we make some fundamental changes.
That's a sobering thought.
It is.
But it's also a call to action, right? We need to find ways to create a more just and equitable society, one where, everyone has the opportunity to thrive, not just survive.
I agree. It's about creating a system that supports everyone, not just those at the top.
Right.
Recognizing that a healthy society benefits everyone, not just a select few.
So what are some of the solutions the article proposes? Is there any hope of turning this trend around?
Well, the article suggests a range of potential solutions, like, progressive taxation policies, investments in education and job training, stronger social safety nets. It's about creating a system that supports everyone, not just those at the top. It's about recognizing that a healthy society benefits everyone, not just a select few.
It sounds like it's going to take a lot of effort.
Yeah.
And political will, to make those kinds of changes.
It won't be easy, that's for sure. But it's essential if we want to create a more just and equitable society. It's about, it's about choosing to create a future where everyone has a chance to succeed, not just the privileged few.
That's a powerful message. Speaking of, justice and equity, let's circle back to the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth, diving deeper into the complexities of this conflict and the role of the international community.
Yeah, the situation in Gaza is truly heartbreaking. The Trends Journal describes it as a humanitarian catastrophe, widespread displacement, food shortages, lack of access to medical care, and a staggering death toll. It's a situation that demands our attention and our compassion.
And then there's the issue of, potential war crimes. The article mentions reports of Israel targeting civilian infrastructure, including, hospitals and schools.
Yeah.
Which could be, violations of international law.
Those allegations are incredibly serious, and they need to be, thoroughly investigated. The international community has a responsibility here, right, to hold all parties accountable for their actions and to ensure that civilians are protected. We can't turn a blind eye to human suffering, no matter where it occurs.
Right, yeah, we have a moral obligation to act.
We do.
But the article also, it acknowledges the complexities of this conflict, with deep-seated historical grievances and competing narratives. It's not a simple situation with easy answers.
Absolutely. This conflict has been going on for decades. And there's a lot of, pain and mistrust on both sides. Finding a lasting solution, that's going to require empathy, understanding, and a willingness to compromise.
Right. It's going to take a lot of, difficult conversations and hard work from all sides.
It will.
The Trends Journal mentions that the incoming Trump administration, they're mediating a potential ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. What are the chances of this ceasefire holding, and what role should the U.S. play in brokering a lasting peace?
Those are crucial questions, and we'll explore them further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll also delve into some other pressing issues, including the rising tensions between Israel and Lebanon, the potential for a conflict between the U.S. and Iran, and the continuing evolution of AI. It's a complex world out there, and it's important to stay informed.
Yeah, no, I think that's the key takeaway here, right? We'll back after a short break to unpack all of that.
Okay, so we left off talking about the Israel-Hamas conflict, right? And
Yeah.
this potential ceasefire. The Trends Journal, I mean, it mentions Trump's involvement, as a mediator, but it paints a pretty uncertain picture. Like, is there any real hope for peace?
Well, the article points out several major roadblocks
Yeah.
to achieving lasting peace. There's this deep-seated mistrust, right, on both sides. The hostage situation that remains unresolved, and then there's always the risk of hardliners within both Israel and Hamas trying to sabotage the negotiations. It's like trying to build a bridge across a chasm
During an earthquake.
Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy. And then you've got Trump himself, who's always a wild card. The Trends Journal points out that he's kind of flip-flopped on the issue, right? Sometimes he's talking about a negotiated settlement, and other times he's taking a much harder stance, and it makes it really tough to figure out what role he'll actually play.
Yeah, his unpredictability definitely adds another layer of complexity. But what's clear is that the stakes are incredibly high. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza, I mean, it's dire, and the possibility of the conflict escalating to a wider regional war, that's a very real threat.
Yeah, it's a scary thought. Speaking of escalating tensions, the Trends Journal also dives into the situation between Israel and Lebanon. Apparently, Israel has they've intensified their strikes in Lebanon, which has a lot of people worried about another front opening up in the conflict.
The situation in Lebanon is definitely volatile. The article mentions that Israel has been targeting what they claim are Hezbollah smuggling routes near the border. But these strikes, I mean, they risk provoking retaliation from Hezbollah, and if that happens, I mean, Lebanon could easily get pulled into the conflict.
Right. So it's like a chain reaction waiting to happen,
Yeah.
and with Trump's hawkish stance toward Iran, which of course backs Hezbollah, it's hard not to be concerned about the situation, spiraling out of control.
That's a valid concern.
Like-
Yeah, the Trends Journal even raises the specter of a potential conflict
Yeah.
between the U.S. and Iran. Tensions are, I mean, they're clearly rising with Israel pushing for a more aggressive approach.
Yeah.
To Iran's nuclear program.
The article even suggests that Israel might be considering like a preemptive strike against Iranian nuclear facilities, with or without U.S. backing, and with Trump surrounding himself with pro-Israel advisors. It's not out of the realm of possibility that he might greenlight such an attack.
Yeah, a U.S.-Iran conflict would have, I mean,
Yeah.
devastating consequences
Of course, yeah.
for the entire region and potentially even the world. It's a scenario we need to do everything in our power to avoid.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've got, potential conflicts brewing in the Middle East. We've got economic uncertainty, at home and abroad. And then there's AI, right? Lurking in the background, reshaping everything around us. It's a lot to process.
It is. The Trends Journal really, I think it lays out the challenges and the opportunities, right, that we're facing as we navigate this complex landscape.
Yeah, no, it's a wild world out there. So looking back at, everything we've discussed today, what are the key takeaways you think, our listeners should keep in mind?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that, we're living in a time of unprecedented change.
Yeah.
And uncertainty. Economically, we're seeing this shift away from traditional industries toward these technology-driven sectors, and this is creating both opportunities and challenges.
Right, yeah. Disruption always leads to both.
Yeah. Geopolitically, I mean, the return of Trump, that's really injected a level of unpredictability into the global system, right?
Right.
Raising the risk of conflict and instability.
Right. Yeah, we're definitely in a more volatile world now.
We are.
And then you've got, the rise of AI, which is, I mean, it's transforming everything, right? From the way we work to the way we interact with the world around us. It's both exciting and a little bit frightening.
Exactly. AI has the potential, to solve some of humanity's greatest challenges, but it also, it poses significant risks if it's not developed and deployed responsibly.
So what can we do? How do we navigate this complex landscape,
Yeah.
and ensure that we create a future that's both prosperous and just.
Well, I think it starts with, staying informed, like we're doing here today. We need to be aware of the trends shaping our world, both the positive and the negative. We need to be, critical thinkers, questioning assumptions and challenging conventional wisdom, and we need to be, engaged citizens,
Yeah.
participating in the conversations that will shape our future.
Right. Yeah, it's about taking ownership,
No. Yeah.
of the future we want to create.
Absolutely.
And maybe most importantly, right? We need to hold on to our humanity in a world that's becoming increasingly dominated by technology. It's more important than ever to nurture our empathy, our compassion, and our connection to each other.
I completely agree. Ultimately, the future we create, it'll
Oh,
be
yeah.
a reflection of the choices we make today. Let's make sure those choices are informed,
Yeah.
thoughtful, and compassionate.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Trends Journal. We hope it's given you some food for thought
Yeah.
and perhaps even inspired you to take action. Until next time.